New Year's Eve parties can be quite challenging. The process of organizing everything can drive you crazy. However, after raising the money, we still hadn't decided on a venue for the party. Almost all the venues were already taken, but luckily, one of our employees had a country house not far from the factory. We agreed that we would hold the corporate party there after work. It was very nice that she had a free place. By the way, I always felt sympathy for her. She had beautiful blonde hair, a slim waist, and she was a dream. The only catch was that she was married and 11 years older than me. I affectionately called her Aunt Nancy. She would come to work in a white blouse, and I couldn't help but admire her. She had recently returned from maternity leave, and it seemed that her personal life was not going well. Despite this, she always dressed impeccably, and we often exchanged meaningful glances. She would look at me, and I would look at her. But I knew she was married, and her firm no to those who showed interest in her at work was a reminder of that. She seemed almost untouchable to me, so I never made a move on her. Speaking of myself, my name is Donald, and I've always been pretty good with the ladies, at least most of the time. I'm a tall and rather muscular guy, so the girls at work would occasionally flirt with me, and I would flirt back, enjoying the amused smile of Aunt Nancy watching this interaction. The day came when we all boarded the bus and arrived at her country home. We quickly set the table and began exchanging kind words about the new year ahead. After a few glasses of wine, everyone became a little friendlier and more relaxed. The party was incredibly well organized. As the evening wore on and people, mostly married couples with children waiting at home, began to leave, I realized that I had been asked to help Aunt Nancy with the dishes. I don't remember if I actually helped her, but I do remember that at some point we kissed. Thus began our relationship. When I woke up the next morning, I found Aunt Nancy next to me. She looked at me and greeted me, "Good morning." I hesitantly responded to the greeting. After gathering my thoughts and looking around, I asked Nancy if her husband was coming over. Her answer caught me off guard. "No, he won't. He's been in jail for a month for money fraud." She had to cut her maternity leave short to make some money. And she asked me not to tell anyone about us or her husband. Naturally, I promised to keep it a secret and left. On Monday at work, Nancy came up to me and invited me to her house for the evening. I gladly accepted and was overjoyed at this development, for I genuinely liked her. And since her husband was in prison, I thought it would be a good time for us to meet. I was over the moon to start a secret affair with my coworker Aunt Nancy while her husband was behind bars. We enjoyed every moment of it, though I was constantly worried that he would somehow find out. "Calm down," Nancy purred when I became agitated one evening. "He's cut off from the outside world in a high-security cell. There's no way he can find out about us. Now come here and help me relax too." I grew more and more defiant as the weeks passed in blissful ignorance of the consequences. And then late one night, as I was rounding the corner of Nancy's house and my heart was pounding with anticipation, I froze. Her front door was oddly ajar. I approached her slowly, my pulse pounding frantically. "Nancy?" I called out nervously. There was no response. I took a step inside. The living room was a mess, furniture overturned, the floor strewn with shards of glass and china. I was horrified. Then I heard Nancy scream. I rushed into the bedroom and swung the door open. There stood a madman with wild eyes, holding a sobbing Nancy by the hair, the husband who had somehow been released from prison. Our gazes met. His face contorted in animal fury, and he let go of Nancy, lunging at me. Then everything went dark. I woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed, an officer standing over me. Under the influence of painkillers, I learned from him that Nancy's husband had escaped from prison by attacking the guards. He showed up looking for money, but found me instead. After beating me unconscious, he fled again into the darkness of the city. As for Nancy, at least she recovered physically, but the emotional trauma of that night left deep scars on both of us. We moved to another city and rented an apartment. A week later, we learned that her husband had been caught and was facing a big prison sentence. Now we have a much more peaceful life. Yes, she is older than me and has a child, but I love them dearly and will not give them up to anyone. She has filed for divorce, and I really hope we get married soon. That's how a drunken affair turned into a happy life, though not without adventures.